Here we go, episode 126 of the Hardline Sports Talk. I'm Michael Merlo. That is John Michael Masiri. With a little bit of a new setup, we have a desk here.
Yeah.
We're in our brand new Hardline sweatshirts.
Rep
Absolutely
gear.
love them. First off, before I get to the housekeeping, JM, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. A little new setup. Feeling like the way we used to have it with the desks and everything.
Yep.
Seems like we're always changing. This will probably also be temporary, but it's good for now, and I like it. I like having the computer in front of me again, and I'm doing good. How about you, man? How you doing?
I'm all right. Run down today.
Yeah,
Definitely run down today. It was a long day, and not feeling the greatest. But we're gonna push through.
Weather's changing.
Yeah, that's what we do. We push through.
Weather's changing.
Lots to do today because baseball has been going crazy as we inch toward opening day. So we got to talk a little baseball. There was a big trade that broke an hour ago. JM's baseball team's falling apart before the season even starts.
This is true.
And free agency has started. And JM's quarterback might be, the vice president one day. So that's something we have to get to at some point too. So we will get to all of that. We got to start with the NFL first. Housekeeping, liking and subscribing on YouTube, liking, commenting on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We really appreciate the support. And, of course, following all our social media accounts for posts throughout the week. Going to be dropping a lot later in the week into this weekend. All right. Let's start.
Did we put a Bachelor segment for this show or no?
No Bachelor segment for this one. Did you want one?
Yeah.
You've been watching that? Are you kidding me?
Okay. Hear me out. So I I don't watch the episodes, but then 2 weeks ago, when that girl Maria was eliminated, I got TikToks on my For You page, and I was like, oh, let me look into this a little bit. Now I'm hooked. Now I'm looking I'm so with the storylines. I have who I want to win. I'm watching YouTube clips constantly.
You're into it.
I'm fully in.
You're fully in.
I'm not afraid to admit that I'm fully into The Bachelor.
Well, listen, you got your passion.
Yeah.
I respect you for that.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about football now, though.
Daisy's my pick, though. Daisy.
You think anybody watching this
I'm pulling hard for Daisy. Oh, I know there's a couple guys out there who are a little quiet, who aren't willing to admit that they're watching it, especially those who have girlfriends. I know you're watching it while your girlfriend has it on out of the corner of your eye, pretending you don't like it.
They like it?
I know they like it.
You know for a fact.
I know multiple close friends of ours
that are watching it
that have interest in it.
Okay. I take your word.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start here, though. NFL. I'm not watching The Bachelor. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not one of those guys. I tried to get into it, actually, a few years ago.
You've watched some stuff in that category before, though. Don't lie.
Oh, yeah, of course I have.
You
That's
like
my category.
your softer shows.
That's my category. Yeah. Soap opera.
Yeah. You love that stuff.
I am into that kind of stuff. All right. Anyway, we're going to start. The Philadelphia Eagles, really hurt our souls this week. Took a couple of our players from our favorite teams. Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, C.J. Gardner-Johnson's back there. We'll start Barkley. JM, when I look at this signing, and we could talk about the Giants and what it means to the Giants in a minute. I want to talk about it from the Eagles' perspective, okay? He took the best deal possible, the best deal that was on the table, and I don't agree with paying running backs. But for the Philadelphia Eagles, who have done everything right in terms of drafting and developing players, this is a luxury they could spend on. It's like, if I'm working, you're working, and you're making a ton of money, and I'm not making as much money, do we both need a Mercedes? No, I would like one, and you would like one. You can afford it. I cannot. I'm not making that much money. The Giants are the poor person, and you're the richer person. You're the Eagles. Right. Eagles can afford this. Giants can't. That's why I think it hurts a little bit.
Right. It's a great analogy. It's a great way to put it. It's just a nice toy to have on this offense for the Eagles. Now, we'll see in terms of Saquon's health and the age that he's at. It looks like he's still got plenty of juice left in the tank. I think the injuries could actually have played to his favor, considering he was off his feet for so long, all those years, and has maybe less mileage on him and has taken less hits throughout the NFL because of the time he missed due to injury. But, behind that offensive line, Jason Kelce said it himself. He's like, this is one of those things that you kind of regret when you retire, is now we have the opportunity of Saquon Barkley to be our running back, and I can't be a part of it. So he knows himself how exciting this is for Saquon to be running behind that offensive line, to be running alongside quite possibly the best running quarterback in the league. It is, besides Lamar Jackson, but
Daniel Jones exists too.
It
He just played with them.
It is
for a
incredible,
while.
and I really think that the money, it wasn't too surprising. Like, I thought he got just around what I thought was fair for him. I don't think he got underpaid or overpaid.
The Giants offered him a very similar contract, I'm pretty sure a year and a half ago, around the bye week of the 2022 season. So, yeah, I mean, it's not far off from what the Giants had offered, what they had felt his value was, and it just doesn't work out with them together. This is something I do want to bring up, though, and you kind of brought up, the mileage. He had to do everything for this Giant team. He was the entire team, and with Philadelphia now, he might not be the best weapon on the team. I mean, you can argue A.J. Brown's the better weapon. Devonta Smith has his flashes. They get great tight end play. Obviously, the line will help him take less shots. But this is a good thing for the longevity of his career as well, going to a team where he's not going to have to do as much, maybe score more, he'll play better, but, this is big time for the longevity of his career.
Yeah, you're right. And, I think one thing about the Eagles that was sort of weird last season was, I feel like when we think about the Eagles and we think about that offense, they have the great shiny weapons on the outside, but the first thing we think of is the ground and pound, right? And they seem to kind of stray away from that in the second half of the year. And, I mean, you saw DeAndre Swift's load got much less significant. He was getting less carries. They were splitting the carries more. It seemed like
it went up and down.
Yeah.
It was split. Then he had a big game. Then he had a little bit of a run.
Right.
And then towards the end,
they
went
were
down
kind of
again.
like riding the hot hand. It was, it was inconsistency out of the running back room. But just in general, I think, the Eagles were passing the ball more. And, that's one thing. Like, they can get these nice shiny weapons. And the point of why I'm making this is to say, well, maybe they'll have a little bit more consistency in the running game with Saquon back there. But let's not forget, the Eagles' main issue last year that we all assessed to them was the coaching staff.
Yeah.
So if this coaching staff that doesn't have Jonathan Gannon again and doesn't have the hell's the other guy's name, Shane Steichen again, how is that coaching staff going to hold up next season? They have no excuses on the offensive side of the ball. We'll see if they can hold up.
Yeah, it's big. They do. Obviously, they go out. They get Vic Fangio from Miami. They get Kellen Moore, who was let go from the Chargers. So they rebuild the staff a little bit. But this is an important year, not only for Sirianni, but for Hurts as well. Was he a one-year wonder? Was he a product of Shane Steichen's system? That's something we're going to learn about Jalen Hurts. But adding a guy like Saquon Barkley, you are able to lessen the load on your quarterback, which is a good thing for them. They add Bryce Huff. More of a kind of Eagles signing. You go get a flashy pass rusher. Even though they have an abundance of them, they're going to have to trade one off now, looking to trade Sweat or Reddick off. But that's an Eagles signing where the running back is not the Eagles' typical signing.
Right.
Paying the premier position like a pass rusher for Philadelphia is what we see from them. And he was a hot commodity. A lot of teams wanted him. I think the Jets are fine after this.
No.
Will McDonald's going to take his place, but I know some Jet fans were upset by this.
Well, I mean, it's upsetting. It was very, very expected. I mean, when you saw the news, it was not surprising whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, Will McDonald's supposed to take over that role. We still go back to that draft last year and say, was that actually Joe Douglas's plan, or is he kind of covering up his original plan of Broderick Jones, which I think he definitely was covering up. But I mean, Bryce Huff is a great signing. That Eagles pass rush is not going to take any hit. It might get better with, another year of a developing Jordan Davis and
Jalen Carter.
Why am I forgetting people? We're out of football season, man. I'm forgetting guys now. And I also get them confused of which one was the rookie and which one, because they drafted them in back-to-back years, correct?
Yeah, the fat one's the older one. Jordan Davis.
Thank you for that clarification.
Carter's fat too.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for
a little
the clarification.
faster.
Well, I was going to say, we're talking about coaching staff. How is Saquon going to impact Big Dom's role with the Eagles? Is Big Dom, is he going to be running backs coach now? Is he stepping up in the world?
Big Dom is still like a personal protector to one of the worst head coaches in the league.
Right, just mob presence.
He apparently I don't want to say influence, but he's important in that organization, and they love him, and he's been there for years. Since Andy Reid was there. Andy Reid knows him well.
I think he knows a couple people.
Definitely knows a couple people. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Big Dom, who probably offers absolutely nothing but his presence and size, is there. I mean, Christ, how do I get that job? Do I got to grow a few more inches? I'm big enough. I'm probably strong enough. It's got to grow.
Yeah.
What do I have to eat? Seriously.
Yeah.
But anyway, they have a lot to prove this season, and they're adding, again, they add Saquon. I'm like, what are you going to do next?
Right.
You need to improve this secondary. I think when we look at their defense last season, that was their biggest hole. It wasn't getting a pass rush, although it was a little underwhelming towards the end. It was what they did in the secondary. They bring back an old friend in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was talking shit about them on, excuse my language, sorry. That just flew right off the tongue.
You're good, bro. You're good. You'll
Wow,
be all right.
I know. We don't have FCC
It's happened
license
before.
here.
Yeah. It's going on YouTube. This ain't going on Nickelodeon. You'll be all right.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're going to have to
You're
click the
fine.
explicit thing.
Yeah,
there.
I'll bleep you out right now. You want to let a couple more out? I'll bleep you out.
I'm good.
All right.
But he's on Twitch or whatever, and he's talking crap about the Eagles and their fans.
Right.
He issues in a little apology on Twitter. We're all good now.
Yeah, we're all good. Well, we know that C.J. Gardner-Johnson likes to talk smack, okay? The stuff with Debo, and that was the corniest thing of all time. I mean, he was just running his mouth, and then Debo ended up shutting it real quick. The thing with the Eagles, though, that's concerning to me that, like, not enough people are talking about, and I don't know if they have plans of assessing this in the draft, the depth of that wide receiver room is a problem. Like, we saw it last year. You had, obviously, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith on the outside, great receivers.
Yep. That
number 3 was originally supposed to be Quez Watkins. He's a free agent now, but he got hurt or whatever. He wasn't producing last year. They bring in a 30-whatever-year-old Julio Jones who was catching multiple screen passes a game for whatever reason.
That's Brian Johnson's offense.
Yeah, but it needs to be assessed. I mean, they certainly need to have that number 3 slot guy, whatever, 11 personnel wide receiver. When you're in the shotgun with Jalen Hurts back there, your third receiver's on the field. They need another wide receiver.
Yeah, and this is the draft to do it, right? I mean, there's going to be really good receivers picked, on the first and then even second day, maybe even third day of the draft. So this is the draft to go address that need. Now, we'll start Giants here before we get to Jets in a little bit. Giants, they lose Saquon. They lose Xavier McKinney within, an hour of each other, basically. And it felt like, Giant fans were going to go crazy and burn the house down. But, again, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking Saquon, it didn't make sense. It never made sense to bring him back. You had the feeling that when they were, talking about an extension, even go back to last season, they tagged him. And when they don't tag him this year, it just all made sense that they were not going to bring this guy back. Now it's official. He's gone. And it definitely hurts to see him go to a rival. I think, obviously, a lot of Giant fans, including myself early on, were emotional about it. But I'm over it at this point. Good riddance. And that era's over. We're not talking about, well, are you going to pay Saquon? You're going to pay Saquon. It's done now. It's over with. And I think that is what a lot of fans are happy about, including myself. It's done.
Right. Well, I mean, there were a couple things that, was leading up to this that you expected the departure to happen. We knew the window really to sign him to a long-term deal was like you were talking about a year and a half ago when he was looking for that extension. Then they make the decision to pay Daniel Jones to give him the $160 million over 4 years. They could get out of it in 2 years, by the way.
1 year now.
They get out.
They're out next year.
But, they give Daniel Jones that money, and looking at the cap situation of the team, it wouldn't really make sense to keep Saquon, even if they didn't give Daniel Jones the money. Honestly, with the situation of the Giants roster, like we talked about, that they don't have the well-built enough roster to go out and in this case keep that shiny toy at the running back position. But to give money like that to an aging running back, it wasn't going to work out. And he gets his money somewhere else, and good for him. And like you said, the thing that leaves this salty is if Saquon was a Los Angeles Charger or a Jacksonville Jaguar, or a Texan, whatever, right? Like
you're rooting for, as a fan, you're legitimately rooting for him.
You root for the guy. Now you got to see the guy twice a year. You got to see him close.
Fans that were obsessed with him, and I was never one of those guys, but fans that were obsessed with him wanted to root for him elsewhere. And I would have, if he was in Houston, I would have rooted for him to win.
Right.
But now they can't. And now they have to hate him. We have to hate him. We have no choice. It's Philadelphia. If it was Dallas, it'd be the same situation.
Yep.
The Commanders, not so much. Who gives a rat's ass. Yeah. But you have no choice. So I think that's what fans are also upset about. Can't even root for the guy.
Right.
But then the Giants, who, again, Giant fans are feeling down. I mean, they signed John Runyon, and then they go out and sign Singletary, which I like the signing, by the way, but we're not going to break down Devin Singletary and John Runyon.
Yeah.
Then they make the trade, the big splash for Brian Burns. They give him a big-time extension. He's the second highest paid defensive end. And this kind of settled Giants fans down a little bit. They made another signing for a swing tackle. And you look at the overall day the Giants had, and you say to yourself, they had a pretty damn good day. They addressed a lot of needs, and they addressed a couple of positions that past regimes neglected, and that was up front on the defensive line and the offensive line. And they make a big splash getting Burns.
Yeah, it's a very, very big splash. I mean, Brian Burns, we talked about this off camera yesterday. I've seen people having issues with this trade and sign with Brian Burns and saying, it doesn't really align well with the timeline of the Giants and how their franchise has been going over the past couple of years. My rebuttal to that would be, there's never really a wrong time to get an elite 25 going on 26-year-old pass rusher in this league, right? We're not talking about getting a Khalil Mack from the Bears late in his 20s, right? We're talking about a legit stud who is in his mid-20s. So I don't think there's ever a bad time to do that. I think the length of the contract is fine. It's a 5-year deal. It could potentially be a 3-year deal. You can get out of that contract after 3 years with only $10 million in dead cap. So I like this. I like the trade. I like the signing. They didn't give up a first-round pick, which is honestly a good deal for them to not have to give up a first-round pick for that sort of talent, especially at that important position. The only problem I have with it is I think it was just too much money. Now, are the Giants in the situation like a Philadelphia Eagles where, they're going to have to start releasing some good veterans because they're pushed up against the cap? No. Can they get to that point within the next 2 or 3 years? I think they would like to. I think they would like to be in that position where, we have to pay a Kayvon Thibodeau. We have to pay an Andrew Thomas. We have to pay whoever else. They paid Andrew Thomas?
Yeah.
I'm on fire tonight.
Really good deal, too.
What's the deal?
It's $25 million a year.
That is actually a pretty good deal for a left tackle.
What Brown's getting?
You Giants fans, you're loving what you're hearing and seeing out of Wan'Dale Robinson lately. Hopefully that's a guy you have to give an extension at some point. You're optimistic that you're going to have to give a lot of these guys these contract extensions and maybe be in the position to go out in the free agent market and grab some guys to make yourself a Super Bowl contender within the next couple of years. Is the dream, right? So that is my one issue. It's just a little too much money, but I have more praise than criticism for this.
Right. And I think my rebuttal to that would be, in 2 to 3 years, when we look at the contracts that defensive ends are getting paid, he'll probably be, close to the bottom of the top 10 of that list of highest paid defensive ends with the way the cap has gone and the way each defensive end, the second they're up for a contract, and each position really, they just reset the market for that.
The one thing that I don't know if people understand this about Brian Burns. Like, when you look at his Pro Football Reference page, right? He's not a guy where you're going to see the career sacks and you're going to be like, wow. I mean, he's had one season of double-digit sacks, right? But I think we're sort of learning as we're going on here that maybe sacks aren't the most important number for a pass rusher. I mean, you saw this year a Khalil Mack get 17 sacks this season, and I think anybody who watches the sport and keeps up with the sport would tell you that was not Khalil Mack's best year. It was his career high in sacks by a pretty wide margin. It was not Khalil Mack's best year. So sacks don't mean everything. One thing that's underrated about Brian Burns, he is effective in the run game, which is rare for a guy like him, a pure edge rusher, as some like to give him that staple. He's also effective in the run game, which is scary considering you already have Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, he's a freak athlete. And I think, when you sign big-time contracts, it's about what the guy's going to do for you in the future, not necessarily what he's done in the past.
Right.
That's how you hope to sign contracts. And I think, like you mentioned, he's going to be 26 when he starts playing this season. You're paying for ages 26 through 30. And you're also paying for the effect he might have on a young guy like Kayvon Thibodeau on the outside and the effect that he's going to have, or really Dexter Lawrence is going to have on him in the middle. I think with the way this defense is set up now up front, I think he will have the double-digit sack numbers coming into this season and hopefully the years going on. But I 100% agree with you. I don't care. If he has 9.5 sacks, but he had a ton of pressures and a bunch of tackles for losses in the run game, of course I'm going to sign up for that. It's
but
not
honestly,
all about that.
I think he will be able to elevate his sack numbers. I mean,
he will.
In his time in San Francisco, in his time in Carolina, he's playing alongside a Derek Brown. There was never really, Hassan Reddick had a nice little pit stop there for 1 year, but there was never really an established rusher or defensive lineman to be along with him to worry about. Now you completely flip the script. Not only do you have Dexter Lawrence on the line, but you also on the other side have Kayvon Thibodeau, who took some really nice strides last year, and you're expecting to keep taking those strides and eventually develop himself into maybe a Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber player one day, because that's what capital you spent on him in the draft. So I think I think you could definitely see a double-digit sack season coming out of Brian Burns next year, especially because I think that defense might be on the field a little too much.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. They're also dropping them back in coverage in Carolina. I don't know what the hell they were doing there. But whatever, that's a terrible team, and they are done. They were offered 2 first-round picks and a second by the Rams for him a couple of years ago, and they declined that.
Nice job, Carolina.
They don't pay him, and they trade him for a second and a fifth. All right.
And now they have no first-round pick.
Yeah. No first. All right. Kirk Cousins is an Atlanta Falcon. JM, I love the move. I love what the Falcons have sort of built here the past couple of seasons because they have a solid offensive line. We know about the weapons they have. Their defense was middle of the pack last season. They bring in Raheem Morris. He will help improve that. And they also bring in a young, innovative offensive mind from the Rams. I love this situation. Now to go along with the 8th overall pick in the draft, they have so much flexibility with that pick. I think the Falcons are in really great shape, and this is going to be a team that's going to win their division for years to come. And I think they could have the 3rd best record in the NFC this year.
Yeah. I mean, they have a lot of different avenues they can go with that pick. I think that's a great point. You said that they have the 8th overall pick. It's very intriguing. I think they can go a couple of different ways. They have that flexibility now where that defense was a defense that sort of surprised people last year. I think a lot of people were expecting that defense to be bottom of the pack, and it wasn't. They played above expectations. Jesse Bates ended up being a guy who, going into free agency last offseason, had this overrated stigma around him. I saw that take a lot, saying Jesse Bates is an overrated safety. He's not as good as people think. He's just going to get an overpaid contract somewhere and underperform the rest of his career. Jesse Bates had like the best year of his career last year in Atlanta and was a huge factor for them. Ask Derek Carr how he likes playing against Jesse Bates. I think every time I turned on NFL Red Zone, I saw Jesse Bates going the other way against the Saints. But they can solidify that defense where when we're looking at mock drafts, I mean, it's 1 through 5, 1 through 6, 7, whatever you want to say. Offense.
I was thinking about that walking into your house before.
There is just so much offense in the NFL, these NFL mock drafts that the Atlanta Falcons could have themselves in a position where they get the number 1 defensive player, sort of like the Philadelphia Eagles had when the Atlanta Falcons selected Bijan Robinson, and they had Jalen Carter fall into their lap. Yep. The Falcons could be in a similar situation where they get a Dallas Turner or a Jared Verse or somebody like that at that pick to help out that defense, or whatever avenue they want to go down to help out that defense. There's plenty of talented defenders.
Yep.
And then you can go the other way, right? They signed Darnell Mooney. They have Drake London. Darnell Mooney can easily slide down your number 3 receiver. You can get another elite
Neighbors is there.
You could get Gabe Neighbors. You can do a lot of things with that pick.
What if I told you Brock Bowers is still available at 8?
That would double tight
see,
end.
I
what
can't.
Double
see,
tight
I
end?
can't.
You want to? Oh, you're going to move Pitts out to wide receiver now?
As an organization, whether you do that or you run a double tight end, as an organization, I cannot advise you. What is it? 2 times in 4 years, 5 years, you take a tight end in the top 10, in the top 8, and they took about 4.
Did you say Gabe Neighbors, by the way?
You said Gabe Neighbors.
Oh, I said Gabe Neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I just said
it's
Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors. Yeah.
It's Malik Neighbors, yeah.
Gabe Neighbors is on the Chargers.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a Gabe Neighbors.
There's Gabe Neighbors. That's why I said you think I just made up Gabe Neighbors.
I think you just made up Gabe
no,
Neighbors.
There's a
you
real
got Gabe Davis and Malik Neighbors.
No, there's a real Gabe Neighbors.
There's a Gabe Neighbors. Yeah, no. I mean, I think I said Malik Neighbors. Yeah. And I like Malik Neighbors. He's going to be a really good player. Yeah. But you're 100% right about it.
Odunze, whoever is there.
Odunze's not going to be there.
You think so?
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's listen, I wasn't on the Odunze trade. Yeah. And then, like, you see him at the Combine, which I didn't watch, by the way. I did not watch the Combine like you losers did.
No, you didn't watch it. You just watched every clip.
You watch, like, just go back and watch him at Washington, I'm starting to buy the hype. Like, all right, this guy might be really, really good.
Right.
I would take him over Neighbors, I think. Neighbors is going to be really good, though.
Okay.
Not Gabe, Malik.
Okay.
I like the Falcons, though. Where do you think, honestly, if you look at the NFC right now, the NFC is tough to predict. There's better teams in the NFC right now. Where do they fit in terms of an NFC ranking?
It's tough. I mean, we're going to get to them a little later. Dallas is, I don't know what the hell they're going to look like next season. Obviously San Francisco, I think, is still the team to beat.
Right. I like the Rams.
I think I like the Rams. I think Philly is still going to be in it. I like the coaching hires they made. I still think that roster is great. I think the O-line's going to be fine without Kelsey. I think the defense is really solid. All right, let's go through it. I'm going to put Philly over them still.
Okay, that's fair. I would say that.
I'm going to put nobody else in that division over them right now because, like I said, I don't know what Dallas is going to look like next. They don't have their running back right now is like Deuce Vaughn and Rico Dowdle. I don't know what the hell that team is going to look like next year. They still need receiver help. They need a lot of stuff. They just lost Tyron Smith.
Dallas is probably my 7th team in the NFC.
I don't hate that. All right, let's go to the North. I'm gonna put Green Bay over them.
So am I.
I'm gonna put Green Bay over them. The Lions are interesting. I think the Lions are going to, by the time we come into August, I think are going to be underrated because I think so many people are going to exhaust the take that they're going to bounce. They're going to have a slump from last year. They're not going to bounce back from that loss. I don't buy that. I think they still have Ben Johnson. That's what you kept talking about.
I did.
They still have Ben Johnson. They still have everybody returning on that offense. They still have everybody on that offensive line except... They brought back
They
Glasgow?
brought back one of the,
they brought back Glasgow, and they did not bring back Taylor Decker.
No, Jonah Jackson.
Okay.
They might have lost Decker too. I don't know about that, but I know Jonah Jackson is with the Rams.
All I know
deal.
is these tweet
it happened too fast.
I should have shut off Twitter notifications. I should have just refreshed Twitter at the end of the day every single day.
It happened way too fast.
Jonah Jackson signed with the Los Angeles Rams for 3 years, $51 million. So
big brain.
He's gone. Graham Glasgow re-signed for 3 years, $20 million. That offense is going to be fine. We'll see the Lions. I think they still got to continue building up that defense. I'm still going to give it to the Lions right now. Let's see how the draft plays out. Let's see how the rest of free agency plays out. I'm going to put the Lions over them. Then I'm going to give you. That's really it. Atlanta, and that's it.
Yeah, I have Atlanta over Detroit. I think Atlanta's 4 or 5 for me. Maybe 4. Definitely 4. They're 3 or 4 for me because I don't know if I want to put them over Philadelphia yet. You know what? I won't. So I agree. Green Bay's better. Obviously, San Francisco, Philadelphia. The Rams are very close to them as well.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I don't know. I think I like them at like 6. I like them 6 in the NFC right now.
I like them 4.
I think, okay, one thing like that we got to just like mention, and I have faith that it's not going to be a big deal. Kirk Cousins is coming off an Achilles injury. Like, let's not forget, he is coming off an Achilles. He's not exactly a quarterback that plays in the style where he'll rely on his legs, but at that age, it is something to be considered.
He's getting a lot of hate for some reason.
Oh, I don't get it.
I'm looking at his numbers the other day when I'm laying in bed. I'm like, this guy's a freak. He's still a really good quarterback. He was on pace for a very good season last year. Through 8 games, he had 2,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. His passer rating was going to be one of the highest it ever was in his career.
Honestly, you know who he reminds me a lot of in terms of career path is...
Oh, wait. Say it on 3.
Wait. No, they're both in the league still.
Ah, damn it.
What, you say Kurt Warner or something?
No, I was going to say Matt Ryan.
Okay.
That's a good one.
I was just going to say Dak. I think they both have that stigma of they can't perform well in big moments. That's what has been Kirk Cousins' kryptonite. We know about that. Kirk Cousins in prime time is the most free bet against him of all time.
Not last year.
Not last year. And, they both have that same story of replacing, Kirk Cousins replaced RG3, who was supposed to be the guy. Tony Romo was different. He was already further along in his career, obviously, but Dak Prescott kind of shoved him out the door earlier than we expected. They were both, 4th-round picks, or I don't know if Kirk might have been a 5th or a 6th. Late-round picks, underdog upbringing in the NFL. and kind of have that stigma around them that they can't really perform well in big games. But Kirk Cousins, man, he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
He does not. He definitely does not. All right. We have another fan video submission. We're definitely pumping these. We definitely want people to send. We have two.
Yep.
We're going to play one right now, answer it, get something else, and play the other one a little bit. But here's the first one we're playing today.
Hey fellas, let me ask you a couple of 3 things, okay? So with the NFL draft coming up, the Patriots are at the 3rd pick, and Gerard Mayo had made comments strongly implying that they're going to take a quarterback. But there are also rumors that they might potentially trade down, and a team that needs a quarterback is going to trade up to that pick. Do you believe those rumors? And if so, what teams do you view as the best suitors? Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thanks so much, Joe. Great question, by the way.
Yeah. Thanks for the Sopranos reference, Joe. I knew you had to throw one in there. At least.
I didn't get it. Jam had told me
Yeah.
that. Jam's like, it's a Soprano reference. I
yeah.
don't know. I'm like, why is he speaking like this? Whatever. Thanks, Joe. Great question. Love draft stuff. Love draft talk. I think there is a serious chance New England trades out because they did not have the free agency I think they thought they were going to have. They really wanted to go after Ridley hard. He wouldn't take their money. Now, does that mean they're going to settle and take Harrison at 3 and pass up on a quarterback? I don't know, but they might think their roster is not ready for a young quarterback, and that's definitely a concern they might have. So if there's a team that trades out, it's definitely going to be them. I'll say yes. I think they do trade out, and they'll trade down to 6 with the Giants. The Giants will move up. They'll get their franchise quarterback, and New England, who wants a wide receiver badly, will stay at 6 and take Neighbors or Odunze, whoever falls to them, at 6 and acquire more picks for the future. That's my prediction there in terms of the draft.
Yeah, it's not a bad prediction. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be a big leap for them to go from 6 to 3. They're going to have to give up a lot, but it's not exactly like this team, I'm going to say. The Minnesota Vikings, I think, are intriguing to me. They're sitting right now at 11. They just signed Sam Darnold to a 1-year contract. I was actually saying to Merlo that I don't hate the idea of Sam Darnold riding him out next year. Pause. And,
what? Excuse me? Excuse me?
Riding out my boy Sam next year and, having him be your quarterback because, I think Sam Darnold might have had maybe a final rookie year last year with San Francisco where he actually sat on the bench, learned a real NFL system, and could now come into Minnesota that has proven that they're also a real NFL system and a proven successful NFL system. And, maybe succeed. However, if they don't want to go that route, or they can still start Sam Darnold and get a rookie quarterback this year, and then next year in 2025, start the rookie quarterback or the second-year quarterback by that point, they can certainly go down that road. The Vikings have all their draft picks. They have no missing draft picks in the first, I think in every round over the next 2 or 3 years. They haven't traded any of that away. And, their GM has said that Justin Jefferson isn't on the table. But we know GMs just say that, and that raises his price.
I believe him.
I think they're entertained. I think they have to at least. I think any good GM, no matter what player it is, unless it's your quarterback, entertains phone calls. They have to be listening on some offers. Do I think they should trade Jefferson? I actually don't. I think they should hold on to him and give him an extension, and then whatever their next quarterback is should have that number 1 receiver in the league lining up outside. But they intrigue me at 11 to trade up to 3 maybe and get a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May.
I don't think they have to trade up to 3. I think they're going to trade up actually, and you have the draft order up here, maybe in that 7 to 9. I think Chicago stays.
I think Atlanta could be a great trade down team. Like we were just talking about that they could get a defensive player. You could still have maybe the best in the draft sitting there.
And you can grab JJ. Yeah. That would make a lot of sense because that's the player I think they'll trade up for because ultimately I think they are under the assumption unless they are able to jump the Giants, they realize the Giants are trying to trade up for a quarterback. Maybe they don't believe that anybody will trade down and maybe it doesn't happen. And if the Giants don't take JJ at 6 or have to trade up and take if they have to trade up and take JJ, oh my God,
we're in trouble.
But
or you're in trouble.
Maybe they trade up to 8 or something like that and draft JJ there. That's a possibility.
Minnesota, the only other person that intrigues me from Minnesota is I think that could be a potential Michael Penix landing spot.
Yeah?
I don't hate the idea of the 1-year Darnold, Michael Penix. Let him really, you have concerns about injuries and this and that. He's healthy now, but let him sit behind Darnold for a year, let him learn, and maybe bring him in depending on how Darnold's performing. Maybe bring him in halfway through the year, but
immobile quarterback there that succeeded with great wide receivers and a good offensive line with Cousins. Cousins, again, like you mentioned, not using his feet.
That's the kind of system I think he has to.
Yeah, that's not a bad one. Yeah. That's actually not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah. But that's 5
quarterbacks taken in the first round.
I mean, we'll see how hungry, what the quarterback market looks like. But, it is, considering what I've seen in mocks, maybe a little high to take Penix at that pick. But if you like him, you like him.
I think a team falls in love with Knicks. I think a
team's going to fall in love with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
you might have 6 quarterbacks.
You're going to have 6 quarterbacks.
In the first round?
You're going to have 6
you think
quarterbacks
so?
taken in the first round.
That'd be nice.
You're going to have at least 5. There's no way that Knicks and Penix make it to the second round unless they have awful pro days or bad medicals come out or something weird happens. It's not happening.
I think Knicks could. I think one of the two could fall out into the second round. We'll see. All right, let's do our last fan video submission, and then we'll get to the running back market. Let's take a listen here.
What's up, boys? With the Jets' first-round pick this year, do you think that considering the O-linemen that are hitting the free agent market, do you think instead of maybe going for that young O-lineman that everyone thought that they should do, they should consider making a bigger splash in the free agent market and then drafting a young stud wide receiver at 10 to complement Garrett Wilson?
Thanks so much, Mike. Great question, because after the day the Jets had, really the last 2 days the Jets had adding some veteran offensive linemen, that's definitely a question right now. They had Morgan Moses. They had Simpson, the left guard from Baltimore as well. I mean, that's an offensive line to take some guys from. I mean, they were the 5th best offensive line according to PFF last season. Yeah. Jam, I'll start here. I understand not wanting to put a rookie left tackle out there for Rodgers, but I'm also kind of thinking life past Rodgers. I don't want a guy like Bakhtiari or Smith, who have had injury concerns, be my saving grace at one of the most important positions in the league. So I would still draft one of these elite offensive tackle prospects. I still think they'll be able to get at least the second best guy, because I think Tennessee is going to take a tackle, but I would still take a tackle.
Well, I really like the point you just made about, life beyond Rodgers, because I think that's something that we have to keep in mind with the Jets is, yes, you're trying to, compete now with Aaron Rodgers. We know his age. We know he's 40 years old, and we know how crucial it is to have him on the field, considering, he didn't play more than 4 snaps last year. So keeping him healthy is a #1 priority. But you got to remember, like you said, Rodgers isn't going to be here forever. You have to plan for the life after Rodgers. Is Tyron Smith or David Bakhtiari going to be the answer for that? I don't think so. Aaron Rodgers might get hurt again. He might be the vice president in a year. Who knows what the hell he might be? Aaron Rodgers might be selling, ayahuasca out of a cart on 34th Street soon. I don't know what the hell he's going to be doing. But
you want your left tackle.
As I would love to see a Dunze or Neighbors or whoever on that team along with Garrett Wilson, I don't know if that's the smartest option possible, especially when you have the receivers are great, but the tackles are also great in this draft.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you can't go wrong with either, like the both.
But you don't have that second round pick.
But you don't have that second round pick, exactly. I think first round tackle with third round wide receiver makes a lot more sense than first round, because I think you can get 2 starters there.
Yeah. I think they could trade back into the second round.
Sure. You can't get 2 starters with first-round receiver, third-round tackle. You can get first-round tackle, third-round receiver,
100%.
have that third-round receiver be your #3 receiver going into next year, and be comfortable with it, with your Hall of Fame quarterback developing him.
100%. I completely agree. And again, it's the life after Rodgers thing. You want that left tackle. You need that left tackle.
You know who I'm actually really starting to hope that the Jets are going to get in free agency? I like the idea of Hollywood Brown.
I would like that too.
I really like the idea. And we know, he's got drop
problems. I have a better one. I think with Mike Williams, I don't know what he's going to cost, but he was released today. I think Mike Williams is insanely overrated, and he's an injury issue.
No.
But I think he's overrated.
I don't think he's overrated.
I think he's overrated.
I think he's one of, if not a top 3 red zone threats in the NFL. He's great at contested catches and all that stuff. But you know who was also supposed to do that? Alan Lazard.
Yeah.
So no more contested catches, guys.
And
where are you going?
Kenny Galladay. I think that's a perfect fit to complement Wilson's skill set.
Mike Williams
to go with
cannot
get
stay
a big,
on the football field.
I know it's a tough ask.
You can't.
It's a tough ask, but that's somebody I would go with.
You can't get a third-round receiver, please, or
Okay.
get a Hollywood Brown. Get somebody that's going to stretch the field for
Get
you.
both. Get Hollywood Brown and a third-round receiver.
Sure, get everybody. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks,
but-
Mike.
Or, listen, if Bakhtiari's willing to come here and be, kind of a swing tackle, I don't know if he would accept that. Maybe.
He's a weird scenario. Bakhtiari is not 38 years old. Like, he still has, for what we've seen out of offensive linemen, like a Trent Williams, who's played well into his mid-30s, he's got some juice left in the tank. He should.
He hasn't played
He
in a while,
hasn't been
though.
able to play, and judging by the luck of the MetLife turf, are we sure he's going to be able to play?
I was told by a friend he's like one of the bigger NFLPA against turf guy. Like,
well,
he hates
he's
it.
also he's a special case where he had the surgery on the ACL, and the surgeon kind of messed it up.
Alatrosh, right? The
Yeah.
guy your boy's seeing right now.
Yeah, and that's the guy Rogers saw too.
Yeah.
And they had to go back in, clean it up, and it
was a mess.
It was a mess. So it's he fell into an unfortunate situation, and let's see if he could have a possible career resurgence. But I don't know. It's judging by the way the Jets have operated with Rogers GM, it is the Moses trade today maybe made me think differently now. But it was really hard for me yesterday to imagine life without David Bakhtiari in 2024.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I thought you were going to come on here and argue with me that, they should take the receiver, they should take Bowers, whatnot. I'm happy we agree here, because that is the smart move to take the left tackle now. Listen, unless you don't have a high grade on one of them, and or all of them are gone, then you take your best player available, or you trade back and get a second-round pick, recuperate that second-round pick.
And God bless Joe Douglas and or Woody Johnson for whatever that relationship is, because not many head coach or GMs get to miss on a left tackle and miss on a quarterback and get to do it again.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. Listen, Douglas might not be the greatest drafter. He might not be the greatest free agent signer.
Good trader.
Guy could trade. Saw that on Twitter before.
Guy could trade.
Guy could definitely trade. If he wants to, do some trading for me, he can on the side. All right. We're gonna argue here a little bit. So a lot of running backs had a lot of movement. I'm not gonna really name them all. We'll get to them. But I think the one and the biggest move, the biggest move in terms of money was Jacobs to the Packers. Aaron Jones gets released. He then signs with the rival Vikings. Jacobs gets 4 years, $48 million. A decent contract for a running back. Jacobs, one of those guys that got tagged last season with Barkley. He's now a Packer. Do we like the flip? I guess it doesn't. Not moving the needle for me. I know Jacobs is a workhorse kind of back. I like the athleticism and the ability to be a receiver out of the backfield that Jones had. I'm a fan of Aaron Jones, so I don't know how much I really love the switch off, but Jones is obviously still a really good running back.
I mean, in terms of fit with the Packers, I think Jones was obviously a better fit. Now, that might be like, you're not kidding. I mean, he was already a Packer and proved that he could be successful, but these are two different style running backs, right? Aaron Jones is more of the dual threat, and Josh Jacobs was certainly a threat in the passing game for the Raiders, but I think it was a little more fantasy footballish, where he was just, getting inefficient passes and little checkdowns and this and that. You're talking about Aaron Jones, where you actually have to worry about the guy in passing coverage, and he could break off an angle route for a 50-yard touchdown. I think it's just a matter of age, man. Like,
You think?
Aaron Jones had multiple different injuries on his lower body this year. Had trouble staying on the field throughout the regular season, was lucky enough to come back for the playoffs and play his ass off against the Cowboys. But Josh Jacobs is 26 years old, and freshly 26 years old. He'll be 26 by the end of the season next year still. And he's, we're talking about a guy who rushed for 1,800 yards a year ago. So I like it. Dillon's gone now. You have a completely different running back room in Green Bay. He's going to, we assume, take the majority of the carries. I
would hope so.
I imagine that the Packers are going to add, whether it's in the draft or in free agency, a pass-catching running back to be a threat.
How about in the second round?
Yeah.
The joke.
AJ
the joke
Dillon?
goes, yeah. That's kind of the joke I was going for. That was funny, right?
That was funny.
You like that one?
That was funny.
Your brother will like that one.
No, I like that one. Honestly, I said to him the other day, my brother, I was like, I think now we can finally say that A.J. Dillon was a bust. And how about that with the Packers, right? we know, like, Jordan Love, the Packers fans didn't really hate Jordan Love as a prospect. They just hated the fact that they picked a quarterback when they were knocking on the door and Aaron Rodgers needed help on defense or a receiver or whatever they needed. Right, they wanted Mims. But how about that? That Jordan Love, is your franchise quarterback, it looks like, and A.J. Dillon ended up being the one that was the bust. But they also hated the A.J. Dillon pick, too.
They did.
And that,
rightfully so.
Rightfully so, did not work out.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
All right, so there we are with that. Now, I think the signing that we disagree with wholeheartedly is the Ravens and Derrick Henry.
I don't understand this take out of you right now.
The Ravens adding Derrick Henry does not move the needle for me whatsoever. Okay, this team, we know they're a ground and pound team with, Gus Edwards last season and obviously Lamar Jackson and the, a bunch of running backs they used, but they are already a strong running team. Henry is beat up. He's been hurt. I don't trust that he's going to stay healthy. He's 31 years old. He's taken a lot of hits. I know he's a big guy, and you think he could absorb them. Again, he gets paid $9 million guaranteed here. I don't know how we can just say this is the move that's going to put the Ravens over the top. They are in desperate need of a number one wide receiver. So the Ravens going and signing Derrick Henry for 2 years and $16 million, like I don't really care about this at all. It does not change my opinion on the Ravens, other than I don't know if they're the second best team in the AFC next year.
Well, they've lost a lot of people in free agency and trades and whatnot. I think this is one of like the hardest disagreements I've had with you in a while. Number one, I don't think they need a number one wide receiver. I think Zay Flowers is developing into I don't think he'll be a guy that, you need to game plan your defense around him alone, but I think he's turning into a nice receiver. Mark Andrews is a top 3, maybe top 2 pass catching tight end in the NFL. He's phenomenal. Listen, Derrick Henry is a lab experiment. Whatever narrative we've tried to throw at this guy about he gets the ball too much, he's going to get hurt, he's going to wear down, this and that. He's had one season in his career where he played under 15 games, and that was 8 games in 2021. He's led the league in carries 4 out of the last 5 years. The only time he didn't lead the league in carries was 2021, which I'm sure through the first 8 games, he was leading the league in carries. So the guy, he can take a workload, obviously. He's a bell cow to the definition.
Yeah.
I just love the fit. Why do I love the fit? Why did the Ravens lose that playoff game against the Chiefs? There's a lot of different reasons. The penalties, the late game mistakes they made, this and that. The Baltimore Ravens just ran away from the running game in that game. Remember that stat about the running back carries per game, this and that? Yeah. They, by far, had the least amount of running back carries in that game compared to any other game they had last year against the Chiefs in that AFC Championship game. Derrick Henry, being in your running back room, whether you want to give him the ball 20 times a game, whether you want to give it to him 15, 25, 30, whatever you want to do, when the Chiefs are playing the Baltimore Ravens, instead of saying, oh, yeah, let them run it with Gus Edwards or whoever else, Justice Hill, who really cares? Derrick Henry on your offense, you're going to have to worry about that as a defensive coordinator. You're going to have to seriously account for that, especially considering you have the best running quarterback in the league handing him the ball. So I think this makes them an incredibly dual threat offense. And it just enhances the offense greatly. I think they become great here.
They have running backs. Like Edwards had 13 touchdowns last season.
Dude, he's getting goal line carries.
He had 800 yards and 9 starts. They had a bunch of guys.
We're talking about Derrick Henry here.
We're talking about Derrick Henry.
He's the best runner of the football we've seen over the past decade. He's been absolutely dominant in this.
We're talking about Derrick Henry in his age 30
season. It doesn't matter. He's still producing. He
took a step back last season.
Standard statistics wise, he did. All his analytics and everything still prove that he's one of the best running backs in the league. He was on a absolutely putrid offense with a Ryan Tannehill who was useless at that point. Then a rookie quarterback in Will Levis. No more A.J. Brown on that offense. No more DeAndre Hopkins on the outside. Okay, no, he was still good. He will be excellent as a Raven.
Yeah,
as long as he stays healthy.
I don't know. You add a running back. You let Patrick Queen walk out the door, like you mentioned. You lost a couple of guys.
Geno Stone's gone. Morgan Moses. Yeah, they've lost a lot.
Like I would have went and added tried to at least a number 1 wide receiver, whether that was making a trade, whether that was making a signing. I would have added another receiver onto this team. I don't think they're good enough on the outside, and their running game has been fine. You know, JM, you want to tell me that they didn't run the ball enough in the Kansas City game? I agree with you, but I don't think Derrick Henry changes the outcome of that game. I think a number 1 wide receiver to give to your star quarterback who's had questions of throwing the football in the postseason and later in the year, like I would have given him a number 1 wide receiver.
Derrick Henry would have made a difference in that game. I disagree. I think that's why they lost the game. They ran away from the run early for whatever reason, and they were just in desperation mode and were trying to throw the ball downfield. But it's not
like they had nobody at running back. They had a guy that was successful for them all season long.
Gus Edwards versus Derrick Henry is like a Nissan versus a Mercedes.
Nissan does the job, dude. Gus Edwards was fine.
I didn't mean to pick Nissan.
Yeah, really. What the hell?
That's my fault.
Gus Edwards was a fine running back. They trusted him all season long. You don't trust him later in the year.
He's a fine running back. We're talking about Derrick Henry, who is an elite run. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. A fine running back.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
This is Devin Singletary to Saquon Barkley. This is not like this is a big difference here.
Gets the job done, though, a lot of the times if you have the guys outside. I would have spent more money on getting my quarterback a number 1 wide receiver and not a running back. This is where we disagree with
the Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers level.
No, my God.
Yes, it is.
Oh, my God. I can't believe you just said that.
This is Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers
There's
level.
no way.
If you sculpted a Baltimore Ravens running back in a lab, Derrick Henry would walk out of that lab.
There's no way. That's not gonna have the same.
Bro, Derrick Henry was in MVP conversations in 2020 when the Tennessee Titans were knocking on the door of the Super Bowl and he had 17 touchdowns and 2,000 rushing yards. We were like, yeah, Derrick Henry's making a washed up Ryan Tannehill look
26 years old.
A career resurgence.
He was 26 years old.
He's still fine.
He's gonna be in his 30s.
You're just looking at the age, man.
I am looking at the age for this position. I have to look at the age.
Age tells the story, projecting for a lot of people of what the body science teaches us. Yeah, sure, age 30 for a running back. Usually you're either retired or you're just at the end of your career. Sometimes you have outliers. Derrick Henry is an outlier.
I wouldn't be surprised
Derrick
if
Henry, as a human being, is an outlier. His body, his talent, everything about him, he's an outlier.
But that body's going to deteriorate, and it's going to go fast, and it could be this season. And I just think when you have the risk of him going downhill in his career, which, listen, they used a lot of Tajay Spears last season in Tennessee. You want to tell me it's bad coaching? Fine, but maybe they were starting to see Henry slow down a little bit.
I don't think so. I think they were just trying to differ the offense a little bit and add a little bit more of a passing game coming out of the backfield. I think the Ravens are going to use Keaton Mitchell as a pass catching running back next year. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to be getting 375 carries this year.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
we disagree there. Running back. I don't like running back. I don't pay running back. I pay Devin Singletary.
See, that makes no sense to me. That makes no sense to me. That is a stupider contract than a Saquon Barkley contract. Why are you giving a middle-of-the-road running back that you could probably replace in the draft for much cheaper using a mid-round pick? Why are you instead giving him $7 million just to what? What's Devin Singletary going to do this year? Make a couple nice plays, rush for 800 yards?
Devin Singletary is very good.
Throw money down the drain.
He led the league in rushing when he started starting.
Oh, okay. Let's see with C.J. Stroud around him and the best passing offense in the AFC with 400 yards getting thrown around like it was nothing.
Yes. Okay. We'll see what happens. Fields and the Bears.
Yeah, this is just ridiculous.
This is, it's funny that Bears, I'm on Bears Twitter because I'm a hater. So I'm either on the side of Bears Twitter where we're kissing their ass or where we're flaming them. Okay. And Bears fans, and I think people around the Bears thought that they were going to have a robust market for Justin Fields. And
it's robust. Oh, yeah.
They have gotten no bite on Justin Fields whatsoever. And at this point, I mean, it looks as though he's going to be traded as a backup quarterback, and he's going to have to back somebody up. And I have a team that makes sense. I think Philadelphia makes a lot of sense for him.
I think, well, first of all, that's actually, I've heard that take, and it's not bad. I mean, I understand that, you know, teams now, you had 67 different starting quarterbacks last year, so you're going to have, I think you're going to see teams are taking the backup quarterback position more seriously now. You know, ask the New York Jets. Shout out Tyrod. Hot signing. Appreciate that, by the way.
What, Tyrod?
Tyrod.
You know, that. You said in the group chat, like, oh, you know, I can't believe we have Tyrod.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Tyrod's, listen, the only problem with Tyrod, he's a really good backup, but he's very, like, not durable.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know.
So, like, you feel good. Like, he's your backup quarterback, comes in the game, he could run your offense, he can make the throws.
Better be loose, though.
Yeah, like, that's a little bit of a problem with Tyrod.
But, you know, Fields, I see the Eagles as a fit if he's going to be a backup, but I think what the Bears are realizing now, there's not a lot of teams out there. I mean, who's going to maybe trade for him? Denver or Oakland? I mean, Oakland. Geez.
No, the Vegas isn't trading for him.
They're not. They just signed Gardner Minshew. So they got Gardner Minshew. Denver's not going to do another trade for a quarterback. If they do, I think they're crazy. Denver's in a teardown mode. Why would they trade for Justin Fields, who wants a long-term deal coming up, when they're cutting everybody and trading everybody on the face of the earth? So they're not going to be a fit. I really think this is going to have to come down to a post or middle of the draft trade. I think you're going to maybe see a team like, I'm not going to say the Giants. The Giants wouldn't be a fit, but a team that misses out on a quarterback in the first round where maybe someone jumps in front of them or whatever situation happens where they miss out on their guy and they're going to say, oh, well, I don't like the guy we have right now going into next year. I don't like our future quarterback situation. You know what? Let's take a flyer on Justin Fields. Let's trade for him.
You know what makes sense? And it won't happen, but I think the Vikings make a lot of sense to do a deal because they can look for their young quarterback in the future without having to trade up. I mean, you're going to trade a couple of later round picks, but it would cost more anyway for the Vikings to do it just because they're in the division. And I don't think the Bears would want to see a guy that they drafted, you know, high in the draft a couple of years ago, you know, work out with a different coach in a different situation in their own division. So I don't think it'll happen, but I just think it does make sense if they weren't in the same division. I think the Eagles, a team like that, makes sense just in case you have this team built around Hurts. They have sort of a similar playing style. Maybe if, God forbid, Hurts was gonna go down for a couple of weeks, you'd have a guy right there in Fields that would make sense and pick up almost, you know, not right where he left off, but, you know, similar styles.
Yes, but what does a Justin Fields contract even look like? Like, I would imagine if he gets traded to be a backup, then he's got no leverage, obviously, to negotiate a long-term extension. At that point, you just gotta, you know, go into free agency and hope that a team wants to pick you up. You show some nice things wherever you end up. Let's say he ends up an Eagle. He starts a couple games. Hurts goes down. Whatever. You got to hope that you play well enough and you go and get a contract somewhere else and go along like a Baker Mayfield career route. But
if he's not starting anywhere, what's he going to do?
Nobody
wants him to start.
And who would want him? Honestly, the Bears, it's a lose-lose for Fields and the Bears right now. The Bears got screwed for the Mac Jones trade. Did not help them at all. Getting a 6th-round pick for Mac Jones. If I'm a team, you know, throw out the idea of whoever was on crack saying that the Bears were going to be able to get a 1st-round pick for Justin Fields. Yeah. They're not going to be able to get a 2nd or maybe even a 3rd-round pick for Justin Fields at this point, okay? With the way that the market is shaping up and that his trade market is shaping up. Where's he going to go?
And who makes
What are
sense?
they going to get? Who makes sense? Your options are down to 1, maybe 0. Like, it's... Why would you take that on? Why would you as a football team that's in a position to maybe draft a quarterback in a loaded quarterback class to instead, I don't want one of these young quarterbacks on a rookie deal. I would rather take someone else's leftovers for a guy that is going to be a free agent in a couple of years with, you know, he's got a 5th-year option and whatnot. Why? Let me take on that guy and give him money and try to repair him with my team.
Would the Saints make sense? I don't want to go through teams that make sense, but
I was going to say that before we were talking about Kirk Cousins. That division, if you went
so bad.
into a time machine to 3 years ago and said to a football fan, hey, these are going to be the quarterbacks in the NFC South. Bryce Young, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, and Baker Mayfield. You'd be like...
You'd throw up first.
What? Like, Baker Mayfield? Kirk Cousins? What?
A lot of things we didn't get to in the NFL, but whether we make videos or next episode, that's fine. I'm sure we'll talk about something with Aaron Rodgers in the next episode.
Yeah.
But Calvin...
Political podcast. Look out for it. Yep.
Calvin Ridley signs with the Titans. That was a stunner. You know, the Patriots
overpay galore.
It was big overpay. The Patriots really wanted him. The Jags were looking to bring him back, but ultimately the Titans come in with a big-time offer and swipe him away from a division rival. Very quickly, because we do have to talk about baseball and get out of here. The Texans had an okay day. They bring in Danielle Hunter to be a pass rusher there. I like the signing. But I think they need a true, legit wide receiver number one. They add Mixon, a nice weapon for Stroud. I wouldn't mind if they went, and I know they don't have a first-round pick this year, but I wouldn't mind it if they went and said, you know what, T. Higgins, how about you come over here? He's available for trade. I think T. Higgins is a little overrated, but and I don't think he could be a 1. I think he's a high-end 2, very, very low-end 1. I would look to bring in T. Higgins, though, in that situation. But, I understand maybe not wanting to trade your second-round pick and not draft. I understand that too.
I think they're fine.
Really?
I think they're fine. I think, Tank Dell will be back next year. I think Nico Collins was, hit 1,300 yards last year. Obviously Stroud is attributing to that. He elevates his receivers, but 1,300 yards out of a wide receiver is, he's got to be a pretty solid wide receiver at least. And Stroud seems to have good chemistry and success with them. They brought back Dalton Schultz. I thought they were going to make a run at maybe an Aaron Jones or a Tony Pollard or a Saquon or somebody like that.
They did make a run at Saquon, granted.
They made a run at Saquon, but I think they're fine with the wide receiver position. I think, maybe add a depth receiver. Robert Woods didn't seem to really get it done last year.
If they have a second round pick, they keep that. They use that on a receiver, like we mentioned again.
Yeah.
How loaded this draft is with them.
I don't think they're. If I'm the Texans, I'm fortifying the interior offensive line.
Okay.
And I'm fortifying that defense more.
There we go. All right.
Eric Armstead, look out for him to be a possible Texan. Wow. They already spent money on the defensive line, but I wouldn't be surprised if they keep spending more.
That'd be big. They lost Cashman. They lost
Rankins.
Yeah, they lost Gradard.
Yep.
So lost a couple guys.
They got Danielle Hunter.
Oh yeah, that they cancel each other out. Big time moves from a big time team in the AFC. Watch out for them.
I feel
like nobody's really talking about them. Like when you mention, you mentioned the Chiefs, you mentioned the Ravens, you mentioned everybody else and the Bills and whatnot. Nobody talks about the Texans. Watch out.
Sneaky Super Bowl pick next year, Texans-Packers?
Could be, because I love those quarterbacks, man. I don't know how you pick against them in any week. But
tough.
Yeah, probably be the Chiefs again.
Yeah.
Anyway, baseball time. Let's start Cease. He's traded, okay? Dylan Cease traded to the San Diego Padres. There have been rumors all offseason. Even you go back to last year. During the trade deadline, whether or not he's going to be traded. Big haul. The Padres traded one of the main centerpieces in the Juan Soto Yankee trade. Drew Thorpe, correct? I almost said Dylan Thorpe. Drew Thorpe, big-time pitching prospect. He's sent over to Chicago. JM, I'm looking on the toilet before, and I'm like, Dylan Cease is kind of overrated, dude. 177 innings last year, a 4.58 ERA. He's had one elite season in his entire career, and granted, it really was that good of a season in 2022, but he's going to be 28 this year. I don't see all the hype around him, and to give up that much for a guy that I have questions about. Maybe the Yankees were right. Maybe they shouldn't have given up Spencer Jones to go get this guy, no matter what the situation is with Garrett Cole.
Yeah, well, the concern with Dylan Cease is, he's obviously a high strikeout guy, but he's shown that inconsistency. He honestly reminds me of Rodon's days in Chicago.
A righty Rodon.
And honestly, Rodon still has those issues considering he had a ERA north of 6 last year.
Sure.
But number one, AJ Preller couldn't help himself, right?
He has a problem.
He got the itch.
That guy has a problem, man.
He couldn't do it anymore. He was just like, I got more
prospects because he's good at accumulating prospects.
Yeah.
But then he's got to trade him. I got to trade it. Come on, I got to do it.
He looked at himself in the mirror today. He said, "Are you kidding me? What kind of man are you? Did you forget who you are?
By the way,
I don't care who says anything. I'm going out. I'm getting Dylan Cease.
So a couple of days ago, like it was rumored the Yankees had, upped their offer, or they sent another offer to the White Sox. That was Tuesday, and it still didn't include Spencer Jones. And you knew at that point, like the Yankees aren't going to get him. But then there was more, rumors, and the teams rumored were the Yankees, the Padres, and the Rangers. And I thought Texas, who's having that issue with, their national regional network, whatever, with the money and whatnot, Bally Sports, I thought they were going to swoop in and trade for him. They have the prospects to do it, and the Padres out of nowhere come and do this deal.
Yeah, it is very surprising. Did you see the Padres as a link to Dylan Cease?
I didn't see the Padres this season. Really. They were going to be like one of those borderline NL wildcard teams where if they compete for that last spot,
right? That
are
we sellers, are we buyers?
Right?
Yeah, something like that.
Listen, I don't know how much this moves the needle for me though. I think,
oh no, I'm not looking at this move and saying, oh wow, the Padres. Like I think the Padres were already in a position where they could surprise some people, or they could keep going down this little hill that they're falling down right now. I don't think Dylan Cease is really going to change that very much. I think he just adds more wild cardness to this team, right? They're just so like they could go. Their win total, the Padres, to me, is the biggest high and low gap that there is in the MLB.
What's the rotation?
I could see that. I'm
looking up right
top
now.
of my head. I mean, Darvish.
I'm looking up right now. I think I just saw it.
They still have Musgrove, correct? Look at.
There it is.
Baseball.
I saw it.
Oh, nice. You clicked off of it.
I knew I saw it. I knew I saw their graphic. Dylan Cease, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, Michael King, love that, and Matt Waldron, who I guess is a younger guy. Who's
That's weird that they have Cease number one, considering Darvish is the opening day starter and it has been their ace for a couple of years now. Even with Blake Snell, I mean, he was the ace.
What was Darvish doing the past couple of years?
No, not very good. That contract's going to go downhill. Back to Cease, though. My concern with him, have you seen his fastball velocity?
I have not. I have not been studying Dylan Cease.
Dylan Cease has always been in the 90th or above percentile in fastball velocity.
Sure.
And shout out to my brother Joe because he made me aware of this stat. He makes me aware of a lot of things. We exchange, conversation.
Throughout the day.
He's always been a low walk. He's always been a low in the percentiles of walks, meaning he walks a lot of guys, and he's always been a high whiff rate guy, right? He's sort of like a Joey Gallo of pitching, but the opposite, right? Like
great.
A lot of strikeouts.
We like that, yeah.
Right? A lot of walks, missing, swinging, a lot of swings and misses, and a lot of looking.
We like that.
But in terms of pitch velocity, he's always been towards the top. Last year, or 2022, it was in the 90th percentile. Last year, he dipped all the way down to the 77th percentile, which is a big dip. His average fastball velocity went from 97 miles an hour to 95.6. So that's a little concerning. And you look at his numbers and the big dip that they took last year, I would be worried about that.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
This is a philosophical pitching question that may not even be able to be answered tonight, okay?
Big words being used.
I'm like looking at these things and I'm like, well, when I evaluate a pitcher, I'm looking, all right, well, what's his ERA and how many strikeouts does he have? And I'm starting to think, I'm looking at Blake Snell. I'm like, Blake Snell leads the league in strikeouts and he leads the league in walks, but he goes into the fifth inning. Like, the job of a starting pitcher is to go deep into games and get people out and not give up that many runs. And the pitchers we anoint to this crazy level of, they're so great, they're so great. I don't care what Garrett Cole's strikeout numbers were. I know he strikes out a lot of guys. He goes deep into ball games and doesn't give up that many runs. That's what I want to see.
Well,
I'm looking at Roy Halladay's numbers the other day for I forget why, and I'm like, well, his strikeout numbers weren't that high. And then I'm thinking, Michael, you're an idiot. And I slap myself in the head. Look at his ERA. It's low. He has a ton of innings under his belt in big time seasons. I'm like, he was a great pitcher.
Well, okay, yes. I mean, it definitely. I totally agree. I would rather have the guy who is going to go into the 7th, the 8th inning. And maybe have, a couple decimal point higher ERA versus a guy who's a high strikeout, high walk, but doesn't pitch him as many innings. I agree. Now, I think strikeouts is still important to value because I think, number one, and the most important thing, you're keeping the ball out of play. So you're decreasing the chances of obviously a hit happening. You're decreasing the chances of an error, of a runner getting moved over, of a sacrifice fly, of whatever the situation is going to be. The most positive out that you can have on defense is a strikeout, unless you get a double play. So the strikeouts do need to be considered, but I do agree. I think that we get a little too crazy with the strikeouts. For me, like a Spencer Strider, I think is like the elephant in the room. We're talking about this, right?
Yeah.
He is more of I would defend Spencer Strider in an argument, let's say, it would be because I view him as a talent of I would want that guy on my team because I think over a long haul, he is going to average out to be a low ERA guy. He might have had some bad luck last year, and he did have some bad luck if you look it up of balls that were put in play that should have been outs and whatnot.
But let me ask you this. The same thing in 2022. So let's say that's just the way he is. Oh, bad luck. And his ERA continues to be a 3.8, a 3.5 compared to guys that have ERAs in the 2s. Like, no matter what, I don't care what your bad luck tells you. If you're giving up that many runs a game, if it's, 0.8 percentage point, decimal points higher, like I'm going to take the guy that's giving up less runs a game.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want.
Yes. No, I agree.
And I want the guys that are going deep into games. I don't want to have to rely on my bullpen as much. I want these workhorses.
Yep.
And that, like with
Blake
Snell, he's a 5-inning pitcher. He's a 6-inning pitcher.
That's why I agree. I don't remember who said it, but I agreed with their statement. They said that there are only 4 or 5 true aces in the game, and I think that is true.
Corbin Burns, Garrett Cole, Zach Wheeler, and who else?
God, isn't it crazy how my mind just automatically defaults to DeGrom?
Luis Severino.
Right. Luis Severino, right. Jose Quintana, yeah.
Met talk is going to be crazy this year.
I can't give it to Strider yet because of those, he hasn't been in the league long enough.
You're talking true ace, going deep into games. Yeah. Who's the other guy?
Verlander's been that guy for a couple of years, but he's getting up there now, and he's had some injuries.
Did you forget, or is there legitimately another guy? Like, is there another guy that we're talking about here? Framber Valdez?
Was that a joke? Please tell me that was a joke.
That guy.
I'm looking. I'm scanning through teams right now. Not Ohtani. Nobody on the Dodgers. Nobody on the Zach Gallen could get there.
Definitely.
Logan Webb could maybe get there.
Gausman?
Castillo can get there. Gausman can. No, but not just. You can't say these guys are true aces.
Fair enough. All right,
well. God, why do I feel like we're forgetting one person?
Well, you said 4, and we only named 3. So there's got to be another guy.
Wheeler. Yeah. Who else would it be?
Well, either way.
Whatever. Burns, Wheeler, and Cole. Right now.
Those are the guys we want.
Starting
games.
3. Yes.
All right. So before we get out of here, JM's baseball season's not off to the greatest start. Garrett Cole, he's in LA right now getting more scans on his elbow. He had a little issues recovering, Aaron Boone said. They didn't find a tear or anything in his UCL, but JM, I think there's no good scenario here, okay? Because there's inflammation in his elbow, right? That's what they're saying. There's some sort of inflammation in his elbow. And I'm not a doctor, but that usually means like something's up, like there's something wrong there. There's no good scenario because whether or not, let's say he comes back in July, right? It's still going to be in the back of your mind. What level is he going to be at? And God forbid, there's nothing right now, but in July he comes back, he pitches a couple of games, and he's injured again, and now he's tore it. Now you're not seeing this guy till 2026. Maybe 2026. Middle of 2026.
What is there to be said though? Like what at this point, what move can you really make? Like Dylan Cease would have been a potential move, but it's Dylan Cease isn't going to replace Garrett Cole. And honestly, I don't think I've seen people saying, "Oh, now with Cole out, they got to go get Snell." That is not what smart organizations do. If you have your ace starting pitcher is going to potentially be out for months, or like you just said, who knows what's going to go wrong? He could be out the whole year. He could be out for however long. why that means you need to go out and give a 5-year contract to a Blake Snell? No,
So
that's not what you do.
So this is the thing, and I heard this on the radio today, so I can't take credit for it. Nobody's replacing Garrett Cole.
No.
You're replacing the guy that's replacing Garrett Cole.
Yes.
So I think it's Luke Weaver right now, who's terrible. Luke Weaver cannot be making consistent starts in your rotation if you're going to be a championship-winning organization this season. You're all in for 2024, right? Bring in Soto. You've made some other moves. You filled out this roster. You got a really good lineup, right? We agree here.
Yeah.
Made some signings,
Yeah.
pitching rotation. I think for the 1 year, Hal Steinbrenner has to just hold his nose, look at the tax, and go to Blake Snell and say, 1 year, $40 million, take it or leave it. I don't care that I'll be paying $80 million for it if you're all in 2024. I'm not saying go on even a 3-year contract with opt-outs.
Right.
1 year, take it.
Yeah.
Scott,
No.
1 year, take it or leave it. That's it. That's all I'm willing to do.
I don't
because
hate it.
I need to win a champ. I need to give myself a chance to win the championship. And by the way, we say this every year when a guy goes down. How many times have we said and seen a star player, whether it's an ace or Ronald Acuna Jr. in 2021, they go down at some point in the season and the team wins the championship.
No, I mean, you're right.
Got to, because they don't have enough pitching to lose Cole, but they would have to go get Snell.
If you want me to be honest, I hate to do this as a fan because you try to stay as optimistic as possible. This is regardless of Cole. I have, for the whole spring training, had an awful feeling about this rotation. I think that this rotation has a chance to be bad. I'm not confident in Rodon. I don't know what Stroman's going to look like. From what I've seen out of Nestor, I feel the odds of him returning back to 2022 form versus a 2023/2019 is more likely. The bottom of the rotation, obviously Luke Weaver isn't going to get it done. You need to replace him. And Clark Schmidt is a guy who could maybe be solid. But I think this rotation, especially without Garrett Cole, could be in a lot of trouble.
Well, we'll see what happens. Obviously, when we come back next week, we'll be a week away from opening day.
Yes.
Which is still very exciting. And, I cannot wait for baseball to be here in the nicer weather.
The 4th annual Hardline Sports Talk baseball preview show.
Cannot wait. We can do that next week?
That will be 2 weeks from now. Baseball starts March 31st or whatever.
28th.
28th. So
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today.
Well, when this episode airs.
Yep.
Can't wait. 4th year.
Can't
Cannot wait. Baseball starting up. That's going to do it. Longer episode today.
Yep.
Real long episode, but had to do it because there was a lot to get done. JM, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you for the support.